So I want to talk about the reduce function. I, I don't know about you all, but I enjoy going to the Mozilla docs on JavaScript and just looking at the different methods, the different types of things that we can do with just plain JavaScript. Um, I also have a couple books. One of them I really like is this book called How JavaScript Works by Douglas Crockford. He has very good opinions, very strong opinions about JavaScript, and he's the guy who did the bad parts stuff. Um, but he goes over some good ideas about JavaScript, like how numbers work, how functions work, how Booleans work, how floating points work, big ints, and all that stuff. So I would recommend that anything by Douglas. I would really recommend anything that he's written or that he's done on YouTube. In fact, I thought today would might. At first, I was thinking maybe we'll just do a movie day, and I'll just play a YouTube video of Douglas Crockford talking, and we can interact with it on the way. But um, so let's go over the reduce function. It's fun to just explore these and just talk about it and see if we can have a better understanding of it right now. So as far as I understand, the reduce function is a method that we can apply to an array of something, usually numbers, where it reduces everything in the array down to one value. Now, that one value could be a sum number, it could be a new object that has summed information in it, but it is meant to return one value back. So the quick example here, and we can demonstrate it in the code over there, is that you have an array of numbers. You start with an initial value, and you write a variable that takes your array and applies the reduce function to it. The reduce function has two options in it. Actually, it has more than two, I think. And we're asking this function to take each value of this array and sum them up. So it'll start with the accumulator is the value that it holds in its memory that contains the sum at the current moment. Every time it iterates through the array, it's going to stick the total, the sum, inside of the accumulator variable, and then the next round of this of the application of this will stick the new current value, the new element into the current value. So it's going to do 0 plus 1 is 1 the first time. So 0 plus 1 is 1. Then it's going to have 1 in the accumulator and add 2 to it. That's 3. So 3 becomes the accumulator value. 3 here plus 3 is 6. 6 gets put into the accumulator value, and then 6 plus 4 in the last iteration becomes 10.
Is
And
the
that's
is
what it
the is
spit
the
out.
plus an operate and the operator there?
Yes.
Okay.
So you can do anything here. You can multiply it, divide it, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So this is the simplest form, and this is what it is. So I'm just going to copy this over and let's just watch it run. Get rid of this. Don't need that. All right. So if we let it run, where's my file? Let it run. We should get exactly 10. We could console log this too, which is what I like to do. So this, here's the method, reduce. It has the two variables, current accumulator and value. And this really could be anything. I see a lot of this. I see A and C, A and C, and that would still work. Of course, the variables have to match the position that they're in so that we know what we're doing. But that could work, and that just produces the same thing, 10 console log sum with initial. The cool thing is that, well, the initial value could be really anything. So if I started with 10, then that is what is loaded in as the very first accumulated value. The initial value is 10. And so it starts with 10 and then it just continues to add these. Be interesting to try like a divide, just see what it does. So yeah, so it took 10, it divided it by 1, 10, then it divided it by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5, then it divided by 3, 5 divided by 3 is like 1.33, and then it's 1.33 divided by 4 is must be that. So that's pretty cool. Um, I always like to console log these things. So I'm going to have to replace this function here. So here's the function here. That's the extent of the function right there. There's no curly braces, there's no return value because it's a real simple one line. And we can do that with these um, arrow functions here. We can just skip all the syntax of a function's code block and just return, just have it do this because that's the implicit return and it's just one line. But if I wanted to put a console in here, I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to add the curly braces and then I'll do, there we go, there we go. That's exactly what I want to do. So now we can see, we'll be able to see in the progression as it's doing its work, what is it doing? Let's go back to 0 there. All right, so let's run that. So this is backwards, but A starts at 0. That's the accumulated value. A plus 1 is 1. Then that 1 gets put into the accumulator value. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 gets put into the accumulator value. The next iteration of the array is 3. The next element in the array is 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. 6 gets stuffed into the accumulator value for the next round. 6 plus 4 is 10. And because we're at the end of the array, it's done. And that's what it returns back to the variable. That's pretty interesting. Um, we can go a little bit more complex too. We could actually, let's do this. Let's create an array of objects that contain, um, let's see, sales for um, apples in the first 5 months of the year. I like to use AI to help me with this to create some test data that I can play with. Great. So we could do the same thing with a more complex array of elements. We could do it with an object. And it makes sense that we would want to add up the sales for this. So we can do that with this doohickey. So I'll do const. Let's do sales total. And I'm going to turn off Copilot for just 1 second because I'd like to just write it myself for once. Let's try that. All right, see if this
Bring
works.
your pay a little.
Huh? Yeah.
Get in
Oh,
there.
all right. So we're going to start with the sales total value. That's going to be our result. And we're going to take the array Apple sales and we'll apply the reduce to it. The reduce is a method that contains is a method. Let's see. So it's that. The method contains a variable or an area for the parameters and then a function. So it's basically just a function. This function is going to be called on each element in the array. We're going to start with A and C again. Actually, we'll do O and we'll do current. We'll do well accumulator and current. We'll just stick with that A and C. So A is going to be the accumulator value. This function also takes an initial value. If I could put one in, I could just say 0. I could also just leave this blank. This initial value is just what it's going to start with. If I don't put anything in there as the second parameter of this reduce function, then it's just going to assume 0. So we'll start with 0. And I'm just going to be a little bit verbose. I'm going to say const sales equals. We're going to start with that C. That's going to be the current element in this array, C dot sales. We'll just do a console.log of that. And then we'll do return A plus sales. So A again is the accumulated value. Say actually let's make this a bit better. We're going to do total sales here and we'll do current object. We'll just be very deliberate. So sales equals current object dot sales, and then we're going to return the total sales plus sales. So let's console log that. I'm waiting for it to finish my code and it's not. Okay, so let's see how this works. It's going to take that array and run it to come up with a total of 1250. So that's great. It added all these up, 150, 200, 250, 300, and 350. So it's really nice that we could take a complex array and pass it into a reduce function and get a total value of one of the properties. Any thoughts or questions on that?
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. Um, the reduce can get even crazier. I have turned on my AI. Let's see, adjust this to add a salesperson name. See what it does. Because we could ask it to only, okay, so it did good, but I'm gonna put this is Alice. Actually, yeah, we'll just do this for simplicity's sake. Bob and Bob and Alice. We'll just use these names. So our reduce function could get even more complex, and we could ask it to only sum up the values where Alice is the salesperson. So let's see if it can do that here. I'm going to just ask it to do it. Sum up values if salesperson is Alice. So it added a simple if condition to it. If the current object dot salesperson equals Alice, then do that. Otherwise, return the total sales. So it's not going to add any more sales. It's just going to keep returning the total sales to the next iteration of the reduce function so that it can
You could
just
probably
add
do it on
those.
the other end too, using filter, couldn't you?
You could, yeah. In fact, yeah, that was you could put the filter right before the reduce and then apply the reduce. Yeah. Yep. So it's going to add 350 or 150, 200, 350, 150, 200, 350, and it's going to get us 700. Yep. What we could do, let's try this even, and I think this is where AI is very useful. Return an object showing Alice and showing each unique salesperson's total sales.
Or
So what I
group by sales, yeah, even, or by agent.
let's see what it can do here. Yeah. So this is what this is doing. It's interesting. It's constructing a new object called totals. It's putting the salesperson um, as the property, and then it is adding up. It's looking in that object, the totals object for the property with the salesperson name, and it's just incrementing plus sales plus equals sales. That's just adding what was originally there to that. So let's see if this works. Yeah. So there we go. So now this is nice because we have some summarized data. We could pass raw data in from FileMaker and we could ask it to create an object for use in a chart or use in a table or use in just laying it out on in it as a quick little, a quick little display. So now we have the ability to reduce it down to exactly what we need. So this is nice. So a reduce function is very useful. It's meant to give us one object that is supposed to be the sum or the total or the it just takes everything and brings it down to one piece. So I'm using AI to do it. This none of this is really difficult. This whole concept right here, if you're not familiar, is an object. This object here with the the salesperson variable is in brackets. So what that's doing is it's creating a property called Alice because that was one of the names of the salespeople. That's the property name and then the value. So we can this line here, if there is no such thing as totals dot Alice, then create that starting with 0 and then add whatever current sales came in to the correct property. So this is a very nice way. I love creating objects from using properties from variables like that. So yeah, that's the reduce function in its bare minimum. There's a lot of fine detail on this in the docs, but it's worth, knowing what those are. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun to play with here. And there it describes even better what the first call is, the second call, the third call. So just to be clear, this function right here, this function is called for each element of whatever array we're working with. This function right here is called for each element of the um, targeted array. So you can really do anything with that. So, and to Doug's point, we could have, instead of doing the if statement here, I'm going to remove what we had done here and just go back to if. Where was that? Oh, no. Okay. We could have said, okay, you've got the Apple sales here, and we're just going to sum it all up. That's perfectly fine. But we could have done a filter for just Alice's values first. So I could start with the Apple sales array, and then I could do a dot filter. And I could say, so object, parentheses, return sales, O dot salesperson equals Alice, and then reduce that. So this one right here will first start with the entire array and it will only return back the ones where salesperson equals Alice. And then I could then just do a quick straight reduce from that. So there we go. So we should have, yeah, well, Alice is the only one in there. So anyway, the reduce function is very useful to reshape the data from FileMaker into something. I think I prefer this. I prefer to let FileMaker or to let JavaScript handle summarization of the data, especially now that I can use AI, give it some sample data and say, I need your help in reducing this down so that I can put it onto a chart. So yeah. Yeah, that.
I gotta run, guys. Thank you.
All right. Good to see you.
See you.
You.
So yeah, that's our little JavaScript lesson for today. Is that useful? Is that useful? Is there places that you could use this possibly? Or do you
Yeah,
use
for sure.
reduce all the time?
AI uses it all the time for me.
AI uses it all the time for you.
I don't, but I will.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's so
yeah,
much you can. What, Adam?
there is a lot of all this array functions,
Yeah.
and I guess the reduce one is an old one. But when you show the list where you have in the documentation, there is a lot of very new functions. This to reserved, to spliced, to string. These are very new functions, and they are extending the specification of JavaScript concerning all the array functions because it's very helpful to to manipulate the data.
Yep. And the pattern is the same. And I try to teach that in the course. I try to help people understand it. Once you understand the pattern of how these work, where you
Yeah.
have the method, and inside of the method is usually a function. In this case, sort. That's not correct. Some of them don't, but actually, toString doesn't either. So there maybe there isn't a pattern, and that's the annoying thing is that
It- all all they work on an array,
yep,
but you have to look always what is the result or what is the outcome of the function because
yeah,
it's not always an array.
yep.
So it depends on the function that you use.
This isn't an array, right? Sum is 10. I can force it to be an object, but it's still going to return one thing. It's either going to return a
Yeah,
what
yeah.
I
You
shaped
here
the
you
data.
can decide what is the outcome. Yeah, yeah.
So
But no, a map, for instance, it's always an array,
mhm.
and also an array with the same size. Um, and when you have, for instance, you have an function within the map, which is evaluating or it's eliminating some values. So you have then an array with empty elements. So you have to reduce them or you have to put them away then with an additional function. But it's at the end it's always an array as a result, for instance.
Cool. So
And
I would encourage people to look at the docs and to
yeah, yeah.
just find something and build it up and see what it does.
Hey, Jeremy,
Yeah,
curious, how would that work if you had more than one salesperson for each one? Like in our system, we have, because I'm sure some of that can be for dashboard. So if you're wanting to pull how many
sure.
services, because what we have is we have a single client record, and each client record can have more than one service. It's a
Mhm.
separate table related via the client ID. And then each service, we have a separate table where we can put more than one salesperson for that service.
Okay.
So
Oh yeah,
just in case two salespeople work together to get that one client, they share the money for that. They share the
sure.
commission for that.
That's a good you could still do the same thing where you're targeting, you could say, I want for well, if you want to come up in this case, we were just finding Alice's, but oh, let's add it. Oh my God, it knew what I wanted to do. Oh, AI.
Creepy.
Yeah,
Reading your mind.
I
yeah,
would I would extend it to, for instance, for January, you have the person and the amount in an array. So you have several persons then for
sure.
each person. You have the sales amount, and so you have an array of objects, and within these objects you have again array or arrays.
That's a way to do it for sure. If you're tagging it to if you're tagging this sales to two different or to multiple people, that completely makes sense because you don't one of your you could have one or three or seven people attached to a sale, right?
Yeah,
So let's revise this. Revise to contain an array.
Now, what if you have it right now where you have one object for salesperson and another one for salesperson two? What happened if you just have one for salesperson and that may have contained an array of salespeople, like say
yeah,
Alice, comma Bob,
Yep,
Bob, comma Charlie, instead of
yeah,
having two different uh
like this, right?
like this.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. So
because
now, yeah.
that's probably the way it would come from ours.
Okay.
Yep. But now you don't know which person makes some how much sales. You
Would
have
they share this
accumulated.
in that case? They would get credit for both get
Yeah,
credit
they
for the
would share,
150?
they would share the commission,
Okay,
so that it would pretty much be split down the middle.
okay,
Oh, okay. So it's always dividing this by two, right?
Yeah,
yes.
I guess however many, I would say however many salespeople there are, it would just it would split it
All
with
right, let's do that.
Mm.
I'm just going to tell it exactly what you said. So, um, return an object showing the total sales for each salespeople split the sales, SP, each sale, split the sale value among each salespeople. Return. Yeah, let's see what that does. I'm so disappointed in
see.
myself because all I do is do this.
Yeah.
Let's see what it does, and then we'll test it out. All right, so Alice was 350. Alice was here, so she got 75. She was here, she got 125. That's 200. Alice is here. Half of 300 is 150, so that's 350. Yep.
Mhm.
So it seems to work. Bob was here, 150.
That's
And then
75 plus
Bob.
100. That's 175.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. Good job. Now this
Mm.
this really is not that difficult, right? It's
When you see
this,
the solution, it's always not difficult.
Yeah.
yeah, but we
Oh,
kind
that
of
makes sense now.
oh, it's like a murder
Oh.
mystery. You just read at the end and you know who
Yeah,
did it. And now, oh
exactly.
yeah, of course, it's so obvious. Um, so it's doing sales per person. It's taking the current sales, 150, and it's dividing by the number of people in that
Yeah.
array. So if we added Eve to this, then it would be dividing it by 3 there.
Yeah.
So it's getting the sales per person, and then it's the current object is coming in as a blank object down here. That's the initial value. And actually it's really good to have the initial value here because I'm going to make it big because we want it to know that we're working with an object. We have to construct the object. I bet if I remove that, it might have some problems with this. Yeah, it doesn't know what I was doing. So I do need to have that in there. This is interesting. This is something new that I'm have to look at and see what's going on. Um, so it's taking that current object that was initially done as an object, and it's what is it doing? Salespeople for each. So it's taking the salespeople in the array for each. That's another array method.
Mhm.
One person at a time. It is finding the totals for each for that person. It's adding it up. Yeah, I don't know. It's complex. Let's see if it
It,
can explain this for us.
it's taking this total of the person, or it's zero, no?
Yeah, or
Because
it's 0. Yeah.
at the beginning you can have zero,
Oh,
and
that's
then
right. Yeah, you're right.
that's what you calculated in the sales per person value. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's going through all elements. Yeah.
In FileMaker, I might use some like what do we call those? We call those named variables where you have totals
Yeah.
and then down in the repetition you use their salesperson's name and you just keep on setting that. Yeah, I might do that way, but this is pretty fast, pretty good,
Yeah.
pretty straightforward. So cool. So it can get very complex, and that was a good example. Thanks for that. Yeah. And then just return this to FileMaker, show it on a chart, or write these to records, you know?
Yeah.
So really good stuff.
Mhm.
Cool. All right. Any other thoughts or questions about this? No? All right. Great. Well, that's all I got today.
Is-
Yeah.
I guess this calculation, everything is also possible in FileMaker directly in the calculation field, or calculation engine.
Yeah.
But what helps here a lot is the specific array functions. This
Yeah.
is doing this is helping the code keep clean and short, because without these array functions you can do this all with if and for and while, whatever, no, the standard functions, the old ones. And with this array function, that is much more easy to program it, but you have to understand the array functions, of course.
Yeah.
And in FileMaker, you don't have this array functions. Yeah. So this is
Some people have them as, you know, as custom functions, and I think the while could do this, right? You could use the while statement to construct
Yeah.
this. But
Yeah, but the while is just a pig, man.
Yeah, it's
Compared to
clunky.
JavaScript, it's so slow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
very cool. Well, this was fun. I like the JavaScript exploration, just picking a function and going with it. So hope that's useful to you and in some way. And try to get this on the YouTube channel. So